There is a side of you you don't introduce to people, not because it's evil, not because it's dangerous, but because you were taught, slowly, subtly, that it didn't belong. You learned which emotions were acceptable, which impulses were embarrassing, which thoughts should stay unspoken. And so you did what intelligent, sensitive people always do. You buried them. You pushed certain reactions down before they reached your face. You swallowed desires before they became choices. You edited yourself until the version of you that remained was survivable, respectable, controlled, safe. But have you noticed something? The parts of you that cause the most trouble are never the ones you express. They're the ones you suppress. The anger that leaks out sideways, the envy that disguises itself as judgment, the sadness that turns into numbness, the ambition that becomes self-sabotage. You call these flaws, weaknesses, problems to be fixed. Jung saw something else. He saw signals. Because what you reject in yourself does not disappear. It waits. It gathers energy. It looks for expression in indirect, distorted ways. And the more moral, disciplined, or good you try to be, the darker this rejected side can feel. Not because it's worse, but because it's starving. What if the very traits you're ashamed of are not obstacles to your purpose, but clues to it? What if the shadow isn't the enemy of your life's meaning, but the doorway to it? So ask yourself, quietly, honestly, what part of you keeps causing problems, not because it's wrong, but because it has never been allowed to live? The parts of you that were never allowed to exist. You didn't reject your shadow on purpose. No one sits down one day and decides to amputate parts of themselves. It happens quietly, naturally, almost lovingly. You learned what earned acceptance, what earned praise, what made life smoother. And you learned just as clearly what didn't. Certain emotions made people uncomfortable. Certain traits attracted criticism. Certain desires threatened stability. So you adapted. You told yourself you were being mature, civilized, in control. And in a way, you were. You learned to restrain anger, to downplay ambition, to hide sensitivity, to suppress impulses that didn't fit the image you needed to survive. This is where the shadow is born. Not from evil, from intelligence. The shadow is not the worst part of you. It is the unlived part. Everything in you that didn't receive permission to exist went somewhere. It didn't dissolve. It didn't die. It went underground. Jung understood this deeply. He saw that the psyche is conservative with energy. What is not lived consciously is lived unconsciously. What is not integrated returns as symptom. You can feel this return in your life, in reactions that feel disproportionate, in patterns you swear you'll change, yet repeat, in moments where you don't recognize yourself. You snap when you shouldn't. You envy people you claim to dislike. You feel irrational irritation toward traits you pretend don't matter, and you wonder why. It's because you are meeting your shadow, not directly, through projection. You see in others what you refuse to see in yourself. The arrogance you despise may be your own disowned confidence. The selfishness you condemn may be your suppressed need. The chaos you judge may be your buried vitality. This is why moral people are often the most divided internally. The more rigid the self-image, the darker the shadow becomes. When you insist on being only good, everything human that contradicts that image is exiled. Anger becomes dangerous. Desire becomes shameful. Power becomes corrupt. But here is the truth most people never face. The shadow is not only made of darkness, it also contains your strength. Your assertiveness if you learned to be agreeable, your creativity if you learned to be practical, your ambition if you learned to be humble, your depth if you learned to be likable. You didn't lose these qualities, you hid them. And what is hidden does not develop. It remains immature, primitive, unrefined. That's why shadow material often feels overwhelming. It hasn't been lived in daylight. It hasn't been shaped by reflection. It hasn't been given language. So when it breaks through, it does so awkwardly, as rage instead of clarity, as obsession instead of focus, as self-sabotage instead of direction. This is where people make a critical mistake. They try to eliminate the shadow. They double down on control. They shame themselves harder. They try to fix what is actually asking to be understood. But repression does not create virtue. It creates pressure. And pressure always finds a release. If you don't give your shadow a conscious voice, it will speak through your symptoms, through anxiety, through depression, through compulsions, through destructive relationships. The shadow doesn't want to destroy you, it wants to belong. It wants recognition, containment, dialogue. This is why Jung said that meeting the shadow is a moral problem, not a technical one. You cannot solve it with techniques. You must confront it with honesty. That honesty is uncomfortable, because to integrate the shadow, you must abandon the fantasy of being only one thing. You must accept that you are capable of cruelty and compassion, of selfishness and generosity, of destruction and creation. This does not make you dangerous, it makes you whole. A person who denies their capacity for harm is not harmless. They are unaware, and unawareness is where real danger lives. But the shadow is not only about preventing harm, it is also about discovering purpose. Because buried within your shadow are the energies that were never allowed to develop consciously. Your purpose is not found in what came easily. It is often hidden in what you were told to suppress. The child who was too much may carry intensity meant for leadership. The one who was too sensitive may carry insight meant for depth. The one who was too stubborn may carry the backbone required for truth. When these traits are rejected, they don't vanish, they turn against you. But when they are acknowledged, they transform. Anger becomes boundary. Desire becomes direction. Power becomes responsibility. This is the alchemy Jung spoke of, not turning darkness into light, but turning chaos into meaning. And this process begins the moment you stop asking, "How do I get rid of this part of me?" and start asking, "What does this part of me want to become?" The shadow does not reveal itself to punish you. It reveals itself because your life has grown too small for your full nature. And until you face that, you will feel restless, blocked, out of alignment, not because you lack purpose, but because the part of you that knows it has been locked away. Heaters the shadow points toward meaning. Termination. The shadow doesn't appear when your life is falling apart. It appears when your life is too small, when your routines are efficient but empty, when your values are correct but lifeless, when your identity is stable but suffocating. This is the part people misunderstand. They think the shadow emerges only in crisis, in breakdowns, in moments of obvious failure. But more often, it appears in stagnation, in the quiet sense that nothing is really moving anymore, in the feeling that your days repeat themselves while something inside you remains untouched, in the boredom that no amount of distraction can cure. That boredom is not laziness, it's grief. Grief for the life energy you've been denying. The shadow carries exactly what your conscious life lacks. If your life has been overly controlled, the shadow will appear chaotic. If your life has been overly moral, the shadow will appear immoral. If your life has been overly rational, the shadow will appear emotional. If your life has been overly modest, the shadow will appear grandiose. This is not opposition, it's compensation. The psyche is always trying to balance itself. Jung saw that meaning does not come from choosing what is socially praised. It comes from reconciling what has been split. Your purpose is not found by rejecting your shadow. It's found by listening to what it's correcting. Take your anger. If you've lived a life of accommodation, your anger is not a flaw. It's a signal that your boundaries were never allowed to form. It's pointing towards strength that never matured. Take your envy. If you envy people who are expressive, visible, unapologetic, it's not because you're small. It's because you abandoned something expansive in yourself. Your envy is pointing toward a life you secretly recognize as yours. Take your self-sabotage. It's rarely about fear of failure. It's often about fear of success in a life that isn't truly yours. If succeeding means further cementing a false identity, part of you will resist it. Not because it wants to destroy you, because it wants truth. This is where the shadow becomes a compass. It doesn't tell you where to go directly. It shows you where your life is out of balance. You feel drained because you've lived too long in one direction. You feel restless because something essential has been excluded. You feel stuck because the next step requires integrating what you've disowned. But integration is not indulgence. This is another common mistake. People hear, "Embrace your shadow," and imagine acting out every impulse. That's not integration. That's possession. Integration means bringing unconscious energy into conscious relationship. You don't obey the shadow. You negotiate with it. You ask what it wants without letting it take control. For example, anger integrated does not become cruelty. It becomes clarity. Desire integrated does not become addiction. It becomes direction. Ambition integrated does not become domination. It becomes purpose. The shadow, once seen, loses its need to sabotage. Because sabotage is communication without language. When the shadow is unheard, it acts. When it is heard, it speaks. This is why meaning begins to emerge only after shadow work begins. Before that, your goals are often borrowed, inherited, unexamined. You pursue what is impressive, what is secure, what is admired. But after the shadow enters consciousness, those goals start to feel strangely empty. Not wrong, but hollow. Because they do not carry your full energy. Purpose requires wholeness. A fragmented self cannot sustain meaning. It can only sustain survival. When you begin integrating the shadow, you notice subtle changes. You feel more present in your body, more grounded in your choices, less desperate for validation. Not because life suddenly makes sense, but because you are no longer fighting yourself. You stop wasting energy on repression. You stop policing your own instincts constantly. You stop performing goodness instead of living truth. This reclaimed energy is often mistaken for arrogance by others. You speak more directly. You tolerate less nonsense. You no longer apologize for existing fully. And this can feel dangerous at first, because you were rewarded for being manageable, predictable, easy to read. Now you are not. But this discomfort is the price of purpose. Purpose is not harmony with the world, it's alignment within yourself. Jung believed that the individual who integrates the shadow becomes less moralistic but more ethical. They stop pretending to be pure. They stop projecting evil outward. They stop needing enemies to feel righteous. Instead, they take responsibility for their own darkness. And that responsibility gives them depth. Depth of judgment, depth of compassion, depth of action. This is why shadow-integrated people often feel calm in chaos. They are not shocked by human behavior. They are not intoxicated by moral certainty. They are not desperate to appear good. They know what lives in them. And that knowledge humbles them, but it also stabilizes them, because they are no longer afraid of themselves. Purpose begins here, not as a grand mission, but as a direction of energy. You begin moving toward what feels alive, even if it scares you. You stop chasing what looks correct, but feels dead. You allow complexity instead of demanding simplicity. And slowly, meaning assembles itself around this honesty. Not imposed from above, not dictated by ideology, emerged from within. Your shadow does not tell you what job to do or what role to play. It tells you what you can no longer deny. And when you stop denying it, your life reorganizes itself naturally. Not easily, but truthfully. And truth has a gravity that false lives can never imitate. Becoming dangerous in the right way. Elizabeth, there is a moment, subtle but irreversible, when the shadow stops feeling like a threat. Not because it disappears, but because it stops ambushing you. You begin to recognize its voice before it hijacks your behavior. You feel its energy before it turns into symptom. You notice its presence without panic. This is when something important shifts. You stop being afraid of your own depth. Before this, you tried to be harmless, agreeable, predictable, safe. But harmlessness is not virtue. It's weakness dressed as morality. Jung understood this with uncomfortable clarity. He knew that a person who has no relationship with their own darkness is not good. They are naive, and naivete is easily manipulated, easily controlled, easily turned cruel under pressure. True integration makes you dangerous in the right way. Not reckless, not destructive, capable. You know what you're capable of now. You know how anger feels in your body. You know how power wants to move through you. You know how desire can distort your perception. And because you know it, you are no longer possessed by it. This knowledge does not make you violent. It makes you restrained. You don't need to prove anything anymore. You don't need to perform goodness. You don't need to convince others of your morality. You've seen what you could become if you were unconscious. And that awareness creates responsibility. You choose your actions deliberately now, not because you're repressing yourself, but because you understand the cost of acting blindly. This is what Jung meant when he spoke about ethical development. Not rule following, self-knowledge. A person who has integrated their shadow doesn't need external enemies to feel righteous. They don't need ideology to justify their aggression. They don't need groups to validate their anger. They own it. And ownership transforms energy. You become harder to provoke, not because you are numb, but because you're not surprised by yourself. Insults don't hook you as easily. Criticism doesn't destabilize you the way it once did. Praise doesn't intoxicate you. You have weight now, and that weight comes from coherence. Your inner life is no longer fragmented into acceptable and unacceptable parts. It is layered, complex, integrated. This integration changes how you move through the world. You stop moralizing constantly. You stop projecting your disowned traits onto others. You stop seeing people as purely good or purely bad. You see them as divided, like you. And this does something unexpected. It deepens compassion. Not sentimental compassion, not naive forgiveness. A grounded understanding of human behavior. You no longer need to demonize others to protect your self-image. You no longer need to idealize yourself to feel safe. You can hold contradiction. This capacity is rare. Most people collapse under the tension of holding opposites. They rush to simplify, to choose sides, to label. You don't need to anymore, because you've already done the hardest work. You've faced yourself without anesthesia. This is where purpose becomes embodied, not as a concept, but as a way of being. Your work becomes more honest. You stop chasing recognition for the wrong reasons. You stop investing energy in roles that require you to amputate parts of yourself. You are no longer trying to prove you are good. You are trying to be whole. And wholeness has direction. You feel drawn toward situations that require your full range, your strength and your sensitivity, your discipline and your instinct, your clarity and your compassion. You are no longer interested in lives that only use half of you. This is why shadow integration often precedes major life changes, career shifts, relationship endings, creative awakenings. Not because something went wrong, because something finally aligned. The old structures could not contain your full energy. They were built for the persona, not the self. And now, the self is present. That presence demands honesty. You can feel when something drains you instead of developing you. You can feel when a path leads to expansion versus numb repetition. You can feel when fear is protecting growth, not preventing it. This discernment doesn't come from confidence. It comes from self-contact. You are no longer guessing who you are. You are in dialogue with yourself. And this dialogue continues. Shadow integration is not a one-time event. It's a relationship. New layers emerge as life changes. New shadows appear as you grow. But now you know how to meet them. Not with shame, not with denial, with curiosity. You ask, what part of me is asking to be included now? What energy have I been neglecting? What truth am I avoiding because it threatens my comfort? And each time you answer honestly, your life gains depth. Not ease, depth. This is why people who have done this work feel different. Not louder, not superior, more solid. They don't chase purpose. Purpose moves through them. Because purpose was never something to be found externally. It was always a byproduct of integration. A life lived with only acceptable traits is efficient. but meaningless. A life lived with only light is fragile, but a life that includes the shadow has gravity. It can carry responsibility. It can withstand chaos. It can act without pretending to be innocent. This is the paradox Jung left us with. You do not become whole by becoming better. You become whole by becoming honest. And honesty requires courage. Not the courage to be admired, the courage to be real. The meaning that waits in the dark. Most people spend their lives running from themselves, not from danger, from depth, from the parts of their nature that don't fit the story they want to tell, from the impulses that feel too raw, too intense, too inconvenient, from the truth that they are not as simple, clean, or controllable as they pretend to be. So they build lives that look correct, moral, responsible, admirable, and slowly something essential withers. Jung understood that a life lived without the shadow is not a virtuous life. It is a narrow one, because meaning does not come from being good. It comes from being whole. When you finally stop treating your shadow as an enemy, something unexpected happens. Your life stops feeling fragmented. You no longer feel pulled in opposite directions. You no longer sabotage what you consciously want. You no longer feel haunted by impulses you refuse to name. Not because those impulses disappear, but because they are no longer strangers. You begin to recognize yourself in your reactions. You understand why certain things provoke you, why certain people unsettle you, why certain paths terrify and attract you at the same time. And instead of judging these reactions, you listen. That listening is where meaning begins to form. Not as a philosophy, not as a mission statement, as a felt direction. You start to sense where your energy wants to go. What kind of work demands your full range? What kind of life allows both your light and your darkness to participate? You stop asking, "What should I do with my life?" and start asking something far more dangerous. What part of me have I refused to live? Because purpose is rarely hidden in what feels safe. It is often buried in what you were taught to suppress. The anger that wanted to protect you, the ambition that wanted to risk something real, the sensitivity that wanted depth instead of approval, the power that wanted responsibility instead of permission. These are not flaws. They are unfinished potentials. And when you deny them long enough, they turn against you. They become symptoms, obstacles, sources of suffering. But when you face them, they change form. They become direction, strength, meaning. Not a meaning handed to you by society, but one that grows organically from your nature. This is why shadow work is not about fixing yourself. It's about reclaiming yourself, about withdrawing projections, about ending the internal civil war, about accepting that you are capable of more than the image you've maintained. Good and bad, creation and destruction, love and aggression, all of it lives in you. And only when you stop pretending otherwise does your life gain weight. You become less reactive, less moralistic, less dependent on external validation, but more grounded, more deliberate, more alive. You no longer need to chase purpose. Purpose begins to express itself through you, in the choices you make, in the boundaries you set, in the risks you finally allow yourself to take. And this is the quiet truth Jung left behind. The shadow is not the enemy of your life's meaning. It is the place where your unlived life has been waiting. So ask yourself, slowly, honestly, if you stopped fighting the part of you that scares you most, what kind of life would finally begin to take shape?